Hey gang, thanks for tuning in. I'm doing this very, very special report on these late allegations, these crazy allegations against Vince McMahon. But I wanted to give you a heads up before we get started. There are some pretty crazy things in this story that unfortunately we have to go into some detail on. So please use discretion. Let's get started. This is the fall of Vince McMahon. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. This is part 6 of the fall of Vince McMahon. This section is called Cat and Mouse. It covers the events of the winter and spring of 2020. If you remember, if you haven't checked out parts 1 through 5, please do so right now. Catch up with us. The story is enthralling and interesting. I've cut it up into bite-sized bits for everybody to enjoy. I use that word very loosely. To consume might be a better way of wording it. Part 5 was called "The Doctor Is Sin." We talked about Vince's expanding control over Janelle Grant's life into the realm of sort of the medical or the health-related area. She goes to this doctor at his behest as her physical symptoms of stress seem to start to grow. Things like hair loss, sleep loss, rashes, things like that, headaches. She sees this doctor. This doctor probes deeply into her personal life, and it's all paid for by Vince. Throughout the entirety of this process, he appears to be in complete control. And so now, again, he's expanded his sphere of influence and control over her to not just include, professional control, financial control, sexual control, but now we're talking about medical control as well. Part 6, Cat and Mouse. So let's zoom out a little bit here. Let's talk big picture, because at the end of January in 2020, the WWE very abruptly announced the departure of the current co-presidents of WWE, Barrios and Wilson. I remember when this happened. It was very shocking and unexpected. They were two people that you would sort of assume would be like in Vince's inner circle. And yet they left very abruptly. And I remember WWE stock price plummeted. I don't remember exactly how low it got, but I remember it got low. I mean, I'm talking like $35, I think, and it got back up to $100, but it dipped low. I mean, I don't invest, but I was thinking about investing back then. Not long after that, February 3rd of 2020, Vince reached out to Grant regarding some rumors about their relationship. I think that he had probably heard through the grapevine that something was going on, or there were rumors of something going on. And basically he kind of just sort of provides some thinly veiled threat to her, I guess, which is basically like, hey, this is going to be bad for both of us if this information gets out. Then about a week later, on February 10th, without warning, Grant is transferred temporarily over to the XFL. Vince was part owner in the XFL at the time. Was he still the full owner? This is before... Well, I guess this is this is right about the time that COVID hit. This was right before the lockdowns hit. So I believe he was still full owner of the XFL at this time. And she's transferred over there, again, putting a little bit more distance between her and Vince, pretty clearly in response to the rumors of their relationship. And about a month later, in March, the lawsuit claims that she actually applied to stay with the XFL and that her request was denied. Doesn't say who it was submitted to. Doesn't say how it was. Like, did she just call Vince on the phone or send Vince a text message saying, hey, I want to stay here? That's not made clear in the lawsuit. But what is made clear is that the request was denied. And after her stay in the XFL, she was brought back into the fold, as it were, of WWE. One very concerning change that takes place in our story now is that Vince now begins showing the explicit photos of Grant to people inside and outside the organization. So you have this very odd dichotomy going on right now, where you have Vince calling her on the phone, 1 month and saying, hey, you better keep this a secret. People can't know about it. It can hurt both of us, not just me. It can hurt you too. Then transferring her over to the XFL. And then sort of doing a reversal and saying, no, but don't stay over here. Oh, yeah, and, I'm going to start showing these explicit photos of you that you've given to me to other people, and basically being relatively public and open about things. On March 26th, Vince tells Grant that he shared some of her explicit content with a former WWE referee who had to leave so they could masturbate, at least is the claim. Vince told her that, quote, she had made a complete stranger very happy. I do believe that there are snapshots of text messages, the actual text messages that occurred. Again, those snapshots haven't been verified that they are actually came off his phone and that they were actually from him. But, it's just another brick in the wall, as it were, of the claim. There are snapshots outlining that. So not only is he sharing this information, but he's doing it very openly. Why would he do this? I mean, I can really only speculate. My speculation would be Vince likes to brag. He likes being the biggest guy on the block. He likes being the coolest guy, the toughest guy, all that kind of stuff. He's kind of what I call a one-upper. If you've caught a fish, he's caught a bigger fish. If, you broke your leg, he broke his leg worse. If you're a tough guy, he's way tougher than you are. He strikes me as that kind of personality. So being able to, show pictures of a beautiful woman, that's all his, that he has complete control over. That might be the kind of thing that appeals to someone with a personality like Vince's. And that sort of really concerns her, as it would concern anybody. One other thing to note is that we're sort of getting close to the precipice here, right? So at the same time, Vince is driving urgency. Hey, nobody can know about this. I need to transfer you away. At the same time, he's sort of going public, as it were, with the nature of their relationship. So he's sort of keeping her on this edge, right? He's sort of keeping her precariously perched on this edge between, don't go too far left, don't go too far right. Urgency, you can't fall, you can't fall, you can't fall. And then here he is standing there kind of pushing her out into the open. And again, if the claims of the lawsuit are true, this would only serve to exert more control. It would only serve to exert more stress, more pain, more suffering on whoever's experiencing it. Because, again, he's driven the urgency. This is going to ruin you. And yet here he is doing the thing that's going to ruin her and put her in this, really, really difficult position. Now, you combine this, the fact that he's showing her picture around to other people, with the fact that, as we talked about a couple episodes later, he's sort of doing this very odd fantasizing of, having other people in the room when they're having sex, sort of leads to this really weird situation where I think she can see where things are going, right? And she kind of tells her, at this point, hey, listen, I am unwilling to have sex with any of these strangers that you're sharing photos with. I know that you've fantasized about this. I know that this is something of great interest to you. And now you're sharing this information. You're sharing my explicit photographs with other people. Not cool. I'm definitely not down with that. I'm definitely not okay with that. I'm totally unwilling to do this. This is basically within the same week that he openly says, I've been sharing your photos with other people, specifically this ex-referee. Again, we're playing even further into the control. This is the end of March. So we're now well into the COVID lockdowns, right? 2 weeks to flatten the curve. We're about 2 weeks into this now. And WWE starts going through furloughs and layoffs. And guess what? Grant, the woman who's at the office, doesn't have anything to do, doesn't know what she's doing, isn't busy, has an absent boss, watches a whole bunch of people all around her crawling to keep up, killing themselves to keep up with all the work that has to be done. And wouldn't you know it, she doesn't get furloughed. Basically, everybody else in her department gets furloughed, but she does not get furloughed. which again increases her dependence on Vince. So now you have even outside factors, right? Things totally out of anybody's control, even Vince McMahon's, right? Global pandemic, lockdown, all that stuff. And yet it's being leveraged. Vince is finding a way to leverage that to maintain control over her, and to basically, encourage her to do whatever he says to exert control. So now everybody else is out of a job in her department, but she isn't. She has maintained financial stability in this time of great crisis that the whole world is really going through. As Vince's control and influence grew, Grant's fears and dependencies intensified. You can kind of see how, again, this is called cat and mouse, because you sort of get in this situation where he's sort of toying with her like a cat that's caught a mouse. That's the imagery that I get. That's what I imagine in my head when I read this. I imagine this can ruin us all. Nobody should hear about it. I'm going to transfer you away from me. Bats her with his left hand. And then over here with his right hand, he starts, but I'm going to share these photos with other people, and I'm going to sexualize you with strangers, and then those strangers are going to share photos with other people. And he sort of bats her back this way with his right hand, and then with his left hand he says, everyone's getting furloughed, there's this global pandemic, everybody's lives are getting ruined, things are going terribly. He bats her with his left hand, and his right hand, he says, no, I've got you, you're not going to be furloughed, everything is going to be totally fine. And he bats her back the other way. So there's this sense of he's kind of sort of toying with her in this entirely unreasonable way. So that's where we get cat and mouse. So that is the events of episode 6. Part 7, this is where things start escalating even more. I mean, I keep saying they keep getting serious, they keep escalating, but that's one of the things about this story is just when you think you've hit bottom, you're still falling. It's just a tree branch. And you bounced off of it. Part 7 is called The Sex Trafficking Begins. It covers the events of summer and fall of 2020. We're talking about Vince now bringing in a third party from the clinic, somebody that's supposed to be part of her medical treatment that she's experiencing at this clinic, literally into the bedroom. We talk about how his sexual desires become even more explicit, and again, they continue to escalate. And we start to see things spiraling out of control. We start to see him using her as a tool for his pleasure, sort of beyond what she could ever even imagine, and things get quite dark. So if you've been with us for this long, thanks for hanging around, and stay tuned for part 7 coming in tomorrow, called The Sex Trafficking Begins. Keep watching so we can keep wrestling with the business.